Some say the best Eldar is a dead Eldar, and they are right. Wait, what's that noise? Ah! Shush, shush. Hello fellow Heroes of the Blue, and welcome to my channel, and also welcome to another episode of Heavy Contrast, a series where I try to paint one miniature to the highest standard possible using just contrast paints and highlights. And in this episode I'm going to paint probably what is my favorite faction of them all. And what's the best way to start Eldar than with my favorite craft world, Iyanden. So, let's get cracking. As you can see, we're starting from a base coat of Wraithbone spray, and I was really thorough to be sure the Wraithbone covered absolutely every single part of the mini, but if you have some grey spots, just touch them up using the Wraithbone base paint. And our first step will be to cover all his armor using Iyanden yellow. As always with contrast paints I go section by section. In this case I go to do the lower part of his leg first. I'm brushing from the upper side into the lower section, so more paint will deposit there. And once I've done a full coat of this, I will go around searching for spots where too much Iyanden yellow has gathered. For example, here is a very good spot, and I will absorb it with my clean brush. With our Iyanden yellow layer now dry, I'm going to take Fire Slayer Flesh, and I'm going to drop this into all the recesses, just like that, to emphasize and to create a bit more contrast. On top of that recess shade with Fire Slayer Flesh, I'm going to thin my Fire Slayer Flesh with Lamia Medium to this sort of thin consistency, and I'm going to glaze this towards the lower sections of each armor piece, just like that. I'm trying to create a bit of a volumetric shading. And again, more contrast, more interest. Once this first layer dries, I will probably do a second one, taking less area just to create more volume. Here on the knee I'm applying the second layer, and immediately you can see the difference. Just like that. With all the shading done, it's now time to start highlighting all the armor, and for this I'm going to start with Phalanx Yellow, and I will do the first edge highlight with this. This will be a thick edge highlight. Remember to leave enough space so we can draw another line in between the Phalanx Yellow and the rest of the paint job. How much thin you can make that line? Well, that's something only you can answer. Just go slowly and pick up all the edges with this color. On top of that edge highlight, I also like to go over all the more spherical parts, and I like to spot highlight just towards the top, just like a small circle, to emphasize the fact that these are spherical, just like that. You can also choose to apply this on the tops of each shape, but I will mainly concentrate this on the more, again, spherical bits. With that highlight of Phalanx Yellow now finished, I'm going to move into Dawn Yellow, and I'm going to do exactly the same edge highlight, but this time as thin as I can make it. So for example, here on his knee pad, you can see the thickness of the Phalanx Yellow, and I'm going to go with my Dawn Yellow and make it as thin as possible. Again, I'm going to try and leave a line of Phalanx Yellow in between our contrast layers. And the Dawn Yellow. On top of the edge highlights with Dawn Yellow, I'm also going to turn Dawn Yellow into a glaze. There's this sort of consistency there, and I'm going to do the same spot highlight as I did with Phalanx in the same areas. With that highlight of Dawn Yellow now finished, I'm going to take a 1-to-1 mix of Dawn Yellow and pure white, and I'm going to apply this in the same way, but just concentrating this to the very tips of each shape, like there. I'm also going to apply a dot of this in the very center of our spot highlights. Very small one like that. And once we are done with that highlight, I still have to go, but just to show it to you, I'm going to take pure white and I'm going to do very small dots in the very corners. The yellow armor is now finished, and as you can see, I've also cleaned up all the areas that will be black and white using Corax White, and I'm going to start shading all the black details, and from this I'm going to start with Grief Charger Grey. The people that are old to the channel already know why I do this before painting them black, But for the new people, don't worry, there is reason to my madness. I paint them with Grief Charger Grey to make them a bit darker. I kind of appreciate, but also to tint them with a slightly cold color, so it will get a colder black, which combines really well with the warm armor. Don't forget to also paint his weapon with this. With the Grief Charger Grey now completely dry, I'm going to do a layer over all those bits using Black Templar. So again, just a quick layer with Black Templar. As always, I'm going section by section, just to make my life easier, and of course just to be careful and not mess up any of the beautiful yellow armor we have already done. As always, I'm going back with my brush, absorbing any excess where I don't want it to be. With the Black Templar drying, I'm going to shade all the white details. That is just his piece of cloth hanging from his waist. And for this I'm going to use a mix of 1 part Aethermatic Blue, 1 part Space Wolves Grey, and 2 parts Contrast Medium. As always, I'm going back and taking this out from where I don't want it. Our wash of Aethermatic Blue and Space Wolves Grey is now dry, and I want to finish off the white details before I start with the black, just for the sake of cleanliness, and for this I'm going to start highlighting them using Thuan Grey, and I'm filling my Thuan Grey into a heavy glaze. You can see the heavy glaze there, and I'm going to start highlighting the white cloth. I'm basically picking up all the volumes, just like that. Also the top of the folds. And here, I want this middle section a bit lighter, so I'm going to brush it upwards like this. There you go. Once the highlight with Thuan Grey is done, I'm going to move into pure white, and I'm basically just going to pick up the very raised folds, like here. So just like that. And I'm also going to thin down my white. Again, kind of sort of a glaze, you can see there. And I'm just going to apply this very subtly to the lower parts here and a bit into the top part there, just to create more of a volumetric highlight. With the white now finished, I'm going to move into the black, and for this I'm going to start using Thunderhawk Blue. And I'm only going to use Thunderhawk Blue on the gun casing. For all the rigid parts and all the rigid tubes, I'm going to wait one step. So I'm just going to do a thick edge highlight with Thunderhawk Blue over all the black details. Again, it's important you do a highlight that you feel confident you can do a thinner one later on. my highlight with Thunderhawk glue is now done. I'm going to move into Fenrisian Grey. And again, I'm going to do the exact same edge highlight I did, but I'm trying to make it as thin as I can. So for example here, I'm just going to pick up the very edge. The idea again is to leave a line of Thunderhawk blue showing between our contrast layer and this new line of Fenrisian Grey. Also, it's now time to highlight all the rigid details. And for this, again, with Fenrisian Grey, I'm just going to pick them up. Just like that. And now for the final highlight on the black details, I'm going to take Ulthuan Grey, and I'm just going to do a very small dot of Ulthuan Grey in each of the corners, like here, here, and also where I think light will reflect off the rounded edges, for example there, there, there. And on the ridge cables, I'm going to do exactly the same, just a small dot. I will try to keep these dots aligned, so they make for a consistent highlight. With all those details done, I'm going to move into all the steel bits, and these are just for the bezels on the gems. And for this I'm going to use iron hand steel and just base coating the bezels with this. With the iron hand steel now dry, I'm going to apply a layer of recharger grey over those bits. While the recharger grey is dry on the two gem bezels, I'm going to base coat all the blue details using Teclis blue. My layer of recharger grey over all the steel details is now dry, and I'm going to take time between coats of Teclis blue to highlight the bezels. For this I'm going to use Stonehole silver, and I'm just going to pick the edge of the bezel with this. With all that done, it's now time to move into applying our contrast layer over the blue areas. And for this I'm going to use a mix of 2 parts Leviathan blue, 1 part Talazar blue and 1 part medium. Once this is all applied, I am going to, as usual, take out any excess. You can see how much this is pooling everywhere. I don't want that. You can see here at the top it's not really very smooth, it's actually quite rough, but this is already drying, so I cannot touch it, and I will have to correct that with my highlights. Our blue contrast layer has dried, and I hope you can see how bad this top of the head looks, but we are going to solve that now with highlight. So for this I'm going back to Teclis blue, and I'm thinning this down to a, you can see that, like a glaze consistency, more or less, and I'm going to do very slowly highlights here on the head. So as you can see, I'm moving my brush from the sides to the center, placing more of the Teclis blue there. you want a smooth transition because it's so round. And I will do the same here on the top of each of these rounded details. And also with pure Techlist blue, I'm going to edge highlight this. You can see my first layer of glaze is now dry, and I will just apply another one for you to see on camera, and I will do the rest by myself. But again, it's the same process, moving the brush from the sides towards the center. That way more paint will gather there, creating a highlight. Well, I almost forgot to do one more thing with our contrast paints, and that is painting the freehand on his cloth. And for this I'm going to use our mix of 2 parts Leviathan blue, 1 part Tassar blue and 1 part medium, and I'm going to draw the Iyanden symbol on his tabard or whatever this is called. So I'm first of all going to do some lines here. Very carefully. Key here is making the line as consistent as possible, and also as not only on its thinness, but also on the distance to the edge. Once I have my line, if there are any mistakes like there, I can always go back to something like Fuan Grey to pick this up, just like that, and make it consistent. Once I have my frame, let's just call it like that, I'm going to paint the Iyanden symbol here. I'm starting with the top row, try to keep it parallel to the bottom frame. That is very important. And now I'm going to paint the legs of the temple symbol. Now I need a bit more length here on this top beam, just like that. Now I'm going to make the lower beam. I'm going to thicken out this vertical lines. It's better to start thin and then see if you need to make things wider than to start wide and then have nowhere to go to. And then I'm going to paint the flame on the bottom. So with that mistake solved, I'm going to move into the next highlight on the blue part, and I'm going to cheat by using teal, because teal is amazing. And this will be Tempered Guard blue, and I will do, first of all, a thin edge highlight with this. So again, try to keep a line of Techlist blue showing in between our contrast application and this highlight. And also, of course, I'm going to make my classic glaze or heavy glaze, something like that, and highlight the very top here on his head. Again, moving my brush from the outside into the inside. With that highlight with tempered god blue done, please note that I also highlighted the freehand pattern on his cloth. I'm going to move into a 1-to-1 mix of tempered god blue and white, and I'm going to do a very thin highlight of this here. And also, of course, in all the edges, the same thin edge highlight, but this time I'm going to focus it towards the tips and corners. Also here on the center, which has kind of a spotlight, I'm going to apply like a small dot of this. Just there. Now for a final detail, on the blue bits I'm going to move into pure white, and I'm having my white quite thin. I hope you can see it here. So white is never going to be very transparent, but this is thinned down quite a bit, and I'm going to do a small dot of this right there. They're basically picking up the highest points of light in all the corners. With the blue details done, I'm now going to finish the model by painting the gems, and as I told you before, they were cleaned up using Corax White. I'm going to take Warp Lightning and I'm going to do a coat of this over the gems. I'm going to start in the bottom corner and end up the brushstroke in the upper side. Just like that. With the Warp Lightning dry, I'm going to take Pterodon Turquoise and I'm going to paint just the upper section of the gem, just like that. In the smaller gems you don't need to do anything else, but in the larger gems, if you have any large gem exposed, I will apply this, clean the brush and then feather it out. But again, in the smaller gems this is not needed. Once the first layer is dry, I'm going to apply a second one. Just a small dot there. And now to finish off the gems, I'm going to take pure white. I'm going to do a dot here in the darkest corner, and I also going to do a very thin line of white here on the opposite corner. Just like that. And with that last detail out of the way and the base painted, our classic Graveguard is finished, and what a pleasure it is to paint Iyanden. You may already know that painting yellow is my favorite color, and each time I have to paint something yellow, I'm just a happy hobbyist. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! Do you like my videos and want to help me make them? Well, there are several ways you can do that. You can follow me on social media, you have the links to all my social media in the description below. You can also check all my affiliate links in the pinned comment of this video. Use those links in your next hobby purchase and help me without any additional cost to you. I also have merch that you can see just below this video or in the shop tab of my channel. But most importantly, there is Patreon and channel members. You have the link to my Patreon in the description below and in the pinned comment of the video, or if you prefer, you can just click the join button below this video. Patreon and channel members help me do all the cool projects that I want to make and help me improve the quality of my videos. Don't be afraid, no content will ever be hidden behind a paywall, but it's a nice way to help me and you will get something back for generosity. So guys, thank you very much for watching, and a special thank you to Daniel Figueiredo, Heather Amstead, Lawrence Sigismundi, Ben Morin, Victor Dome, Michael Boye, Christophe Moret, Joshua Bohannon, Ryan Mann, Beldrain, Patrick Ketsitis, Javi Mota, Kevin Sulas, Kieran Omurthaer, Leonard Lindemann, Jonathan Ekelund, Dr. V, G-Force, Elric S, Sasha Park, D.T. Butler, Manuel Vilela, Joe Simpson, Dominic Trevizo, Richard Kekowski, Brent Sillinger, Mark Jarvis, Gareth Smith, Bill Caswar, Mateo de Rienzo, Arondel, Nadius Maximus, Samuel Supernev, Equitas, and Chris Fibey for being the coolest persons in the planet. Be like these fine folks on my Patreon and take control.